Here we are at the inaugural Damm Podcast. Here we are with Leon Cook, aka Cookie Monster, aka the Teflon Don. How you doing, Leon?
Oh man, I'm great. You brought some names back, man. Those are some old school nicknames. I'm gonna have to explain those later.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Leon used to rap back in the day, so
yeah. But me back in the day, I still rap. Just not out loud.
Yeah, only in the shower, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
So we're gonna start off talking about what we're going to be doing on this podcast, which is talking about real estate, one of my loves of my life, not including my children or wife, but absolutely love real estate.
Yeah, fanatics.
Money.
Yeah, money's good.
And life. So we're going to talk about a bunch of really interesting topics. So
no politics or religion.
No. We're gonna keep those to the boardroom.
You don't want to go viral.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want us to really get into how you got into real estate. I know that back in the day when you first started doing real estate, you got into it doing loans, and then slowly that trickled into some other things. Can you give me a little background so that our listeners can learn how you got to where you're at today?
It's a very windy road, and I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version, because it's like starts and stops and intersects in all kind of different ways. But essentially, the inaugural thing that got me into real estate investing was being associated with another real estate investor. Like, he was my landlord. And I was always curious about real estate from a young age. I was like a Monopoly fanatic, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And would have competitive games of Monopoly as a kid. But essentially, like, I went to school for finance. I worked in first collections as a loan collector. I don't think you know this about me, actually. And then I was a loss mitigation.
Okay.
And so as I was interning to work for JP Morgan as a loss mit guy, one of the funny things that's happened is, like, I was a junior in college. On my application, I put that I completed. So
got it.
Yeah.
Can you explain to everybody what loss mitigation is?
Yeah. Loss mitigation is a fancy word for collections. Really, at the end of the day, they are trying to make sure the bank gets paid and they suffer as little loss as possible while collecting the mortgage.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you're a bill collector.
Yeah, essentially, like, on behalf of the bank. And
Yeah.
some things that...
Did you bring a baseball bat with you, or you just send them a letter, or how'd that work?
Yeah, we always had the threat of foreclosure. That's the big, that's the tank. The 8,000-pound gorilla in the room is the foreclosure. And as we know, so we came in the industry with hyper, growth, and then a collapse in 2008. And that's when I was in loss mitigation. And so that little journey put me smack dab in the center of short sales, if you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. So after getting laid off from loss mit, I was like, hey, I'm gonna take these skill sets and I'm gonna work all the things that I know to get deals. And so I was negotiating transactions on behalf of realtors, on behalf of homeowners, but mainly investors are trying to buy these deals up, and the reason a short sale made sense. And first of all, let's explain what a short sale is. It's when you owe more on your home than it's worth. So you got a loan that's, $500,000 and your house is worth $250,000.
Yeah. And
yeah,
a lot of people who are familiar with the real estate market today can't really imagine buying a house and it being worth less than what they owe on it. But back then, during that time, it was really common, right? People spent exuberant amount of money on their house. And then when the real estate market collapsed, it ended up being worth less. Mm-hmm. And so in order to get out from underneath that debt, they would go to the bank and they would say, hey, we owe $500,000. It's only worth $200,000. will you take less? And that's what you did, right? You negotiated the lesser amount for the bank to say, yes,
Yeah.
we're willing to take that loss.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some interesting like nuance there too, right? Like, so one of the biggest things is like, you go to Wells Fargo, you deposit your money at Wells Fargo or Chase or whatever. There's like, the 5 biggest banks that most people bank with. They don't actually own your loan. They don't own your mortgage. They're a servicer. They're like a customer service debt collection agency, essentially, that's taking the payment on behalf of someone else who owns the loan.
Correct.
So why that's an important factor is that a lot of the time they don't have the decision-making capabilities to say, yes, we're going to take less, or, no. They're just a conduit, a pass-through, no different than we were.
Right.
Right. And so we had to learn the game of how to like actually work with the real investor, which sometimes was like hedge funds or, pension funds, large organizations that
it could even be like a guy, right? Just
a
random guy that lent the money, and you had to get that guy to go, yes, I'm willing to cut my losses and sell that. Now, that's a great segue into when you were doing these short sales and all these people were selling their house for just, pennies on the dollar. Did you have the desire to invest in real estate at that time? Because either the property prices were significantly cheaper, or were you scared to get into the market then because the market had just taken this gigantic tumble? Like, what made you want to get into investing into real estate at that point in time?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Kind of a 2-part question. So I'll tackle the first part. Was it scary? Absolutely. Because the first thing you got to realize is at that time frame, we had just witnessed like people just get slaughtered. They were absolutely obliterated in the real estate market, lost everything. There was what, Warren Buffett calls irrational exuberance. And that definitely played a part in real estate, where people were just buying houses and thinking they were going to go up by 20% within the month and refinance it. And it was happening a lot of times. So there's a lot of like fraud and just odd things going on. But yeah, was it scary? Absolutely. What shifted that belief was just surrounding myself around investors that was like, oh, this is a one-time opportunity to buy real estate that you're never going to see ever again. And it took me some time from that moment that I've always wanted to invest in real estate, but getting the right entry point to do it, whether it's like having enough money, having enough knowledge or resources, it's just a timing thing.
Right.
And so for many years, instead of being actively a part of those deals as a investor or like a partner in the deals, I facilitated the deals, and I learned and I listened, and I just took notes on what they were doing successfully. And just sidebar, like, some of those investors still own some of the houses that we negotiated. Or, every time and then I'll look at Zillow and I'll look at a property like, oh, I remember this house that we negotiated. And
sure. Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah. I remember back in that time frame, I also owned a website, shortsalesandiego.com, and that was a great marketing tool for finding distressed homeowners. And I sold a lot of those properties to investors that just made millions and millions and millions of dollars, because it was this time frame that people were upside down, but there were still lots of buyers out there.
Yeah.
So you could go out and you could find a buyer for post acquisition on a short sale. So an investor would come in, we would negotiate a great deal for the buyer. They would get a discount, and then that investor would swoop in behind, remodel it, or sometimes not, and they would put it back on the market, and they would make money on the back end, right?
Yeah. A lot of times, there were easier listings to take in some ways, especially like if you outsource the negotiation of the short sale. because now if you have a seller, they're very interested in making sure that they maintain the most amount of equity they can, because every dollar that they give away to a buyer or to commission or to fees, it's like literally coming out of their pocket. In a short sale, they weren't going to make any money anyway.
Yeah.
And so they could care less what the home sold for. And so if an investor came with an offer that was, below market value and the bank accepted it, it was all,
who cares?
Who cares? Exactly. The homeowner's like,
Yes.
let's just get out of the situation.
Yes, exactly.
So those are great listings to take. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you watched a lot of these investors making all this money, and you decided to hop into the investor game at that point in time, or were you just negotiating the short sales?
Yeah. So to start off, I guess the first couple years from 2009, 10, we, all the way up to 11, we were just facilitating transactions, building relationships, understanding the game, paying attention to what was going on, what was hot, what was not. By 2012, hopped in the game, like, full force, feet first kind of thing, because there were just so many good deals. And it was just it was like, could you raise the money? Did you have the money? Because the deals were everywhere.
Yeah.
And so,
in fact, I did my first ever flip with you. Do you remember that?
I do. It was not far from here, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
I was just telling someone about this story the other day.
And it's just so interesting because for a long time, I looked at the investor game as something I just did not have enough money to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I looked at these houses that were 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, whatever they were. And I went, man, I can never come up with that much money to buy this property. And then somebody gave me a piece of advice, which I thought was really kind of life-changing, which was, they said, if I could bring you a house that was worth $10 million and I could get it to you for $1 million, do you think you could come up with $1 million? And it was interesting because I had to really think about how I would raise $1 million. But at the same time, I thought there's zero chance that I'm not going to be able to find $1 million for a house that was worth 10 million. Right?
Yeah.
So the money aspect became less relevant the deeper I got, because as you looked at these deals with equity in the $200,000-$300,000 range, where you can remodel it, and that I want to go into the remodeling portion of these beginning projects too.
Sure.
But yeah, the money part I thought was the most important part, and as this evolved to where we're at now, that the money is actually the least important part of the project, right?
Yeah. And even like raising the $1 million, that's like levels more advanced than some of the strategies that exist now. Like sometimes you even need to raise money. And I always thought, when, an outside looking in, like even being around the real estate, business, from mortgages or being a listing agent, you hear these like seller financing, creating financing things, and you think they're like, oh, that's just a guru talking.
Yes.
That doesn't exist. But no, it really does. I mean, in fact, the first deal we did was creative financing, where we didn't
seller too.
Subject to, and we didn't need to raise a lot of money because they were willing to allow us to take over the payments creatively, and there was not a ton of equity in the deal, but we could force the appreciation by coming and rehabbing it with our own cash. So essentially, the only money we had to have was the rehab money.
Exactly, the rehab money, and we also helped the seller move out. So we supplied her with an apartment. We helped her find it. We helped her apply for it. We gave her the deposit. So there was some additional fees that we had to come up to, but subject to financing, which we'll kind of go into later with the creative financing. We're going to talk about that, but we were able to buy that with very little money out of pocket. And although it wasn't a home run deal, and we've had those home run deals, this was a amazing deal to get our feet wet, we made a little bit of money, and we learned a lot.
Yeah. And that was at a time that we were really mitigating risk, right? Like getting in the real estate investing business requires you to do a couple things, but one of the biggest things is like avoid losing money.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
And so sometimes I think a lot of people are going for those home runs, grand slams on their deals, but they're taking on a lot of risk to do that. It's almost even better to mitigate the downside, getting something that could potentially cash flow, have like many exit strategies, ways to get out of the deals such it goes south.
Yes.
But you're not getting like $1 million, you're not getting rich on one deal. It's a base hit,
right?
To use that analogy. So
yep.
that was that kind of deal that got us in the game.
Yeah. So you started off in an area of the market which was kind of the collections aspect.
Sure.
Then you moved to short sales, which was negotiating these deals during the downturn of the market.
Yeah.
And then you post negotiations, then you got into buying your own deals, right?
Yeah.
And then since then, the natural progression for most investors, once they've got in and they've built up a bankroll and they've done a bunch of deals, is then they get into the buy and hold properties.
Mm-hmm.
So was that the natural step for you? Was that the next thing that you did after that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what you would find at the time, the short sales were the it thing. Financing was a struggle. Mm-hmm. Like getting a good loan was difficult because a lot of lenders were either out of business or interest rates were high. Then we went to a period of kind of like stabilizing, and then a growth period where loan values increase. So they were giving you more loan to value. So they'd lend you more money for the home.
Yep.
Interest rates were coming down, and the ability to get it. So the qualification, the ability to qualify lessens. It was loosening up. And so we were like, well, instead of selling this thing, it's already got equity in it. It cash flows. Why don't we just buy it and hold it?
Yeah. And you can get, at the time, the federal government actually allowed these exuberantly low interest rates, like 2%, 3%.
Yeah.
So if you could buy a place and have a 2 or 3% interest rate, you're basically getting free money, right?
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing. I think that, not to go off topic too much, but you kind of have to be a historian too when you're investing in real estate. Like market trends are important, understanding like the nuance of how it got to that place. Looking back at short sales, what created that market of foreclosures where everyone's going into foreclosure, where short sales had to be a thing. And then you got to project for what's going to happen, So being a good real estate investor requires that you have some looking back knowledge, like you look historically and then kind of predict what's going on.
So basically what you're saying is you got to have a time machine to be successful in real estate. Is that what you're saying? Investing?
Yeah. If I could, I would go back to 1907 and
buy everything. Yeah. I'll be the new Charles Horton. Instead of Horton Plaza, it'll be Damm Plaza.
Yeah, exactly. I read articles. I haven't substantiated this, but he bought that for like $100, basically. All of downtown San Diego was like.
He bought it for $800.
Yeah, it's wild. Right?
All of downtown.
Yeah. So imagine.
That is wild.
Yeah. So a funny question. Yeah, you got to go back in time with a time machine to be successful in real estate. But kind of the answer is yeah.
Yeah. So to rewinding back to that, you have now been in the game for a long time. Mm-hmm. So have you kept a lot of stuff up till now, or have you sold, or what does your current portfolio look like?
So interesting question. I technically only own my primary residence,
Okay.
But I control companies that own real estate.
Got it. Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah. Externally, you own a lot of other things.
Yeah. I personally don't own anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is something that a lot of people probably don't know about you is you actually have some management of other people's properties that you do for short-term rentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that something you still do?
Yeah, that's a big part of my business is, so I have an organization called Above and Abroad. It was created to, one, manage my own portfolio of short-term rentals, which included both wholly owned and then what we at the time called rental arbitrage, right? That was super popular. I was in that. To explain what that is basically like anytime there's an arbitrage, you're getting something at a market advantage. So you have something cheaper than other people can get.
Yep.
And then you can sell it at a premium. And so what a rental arbitrage was is, let's say you like lease a house, 4-bedroom house. Normally that house would lease for like, call it $3,000. And if you can furnish it and then put on the Airbnb, well, you can get a premium for that, where now the house is renting for
$6,000,
$8,000,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so you would be able to create a premium by making a market differentiation from what's available. And then, based on supply and demand, you create income. And so I scaled that pretty quickly when it was a smart thing to do. It's not the smartest thing to do now for several reasons. One of them being like laws that have changed, so there's regulation, much more supply. And just, I think the consumer needs have changed as well. Like the way that people approach short-term rental, Airbnb, furnished rental, the mindset has shifted. So you got to be able to shift with it. But yeah, at the time I had grown a portfolio of rental properties that I owned, and then I was leasing, and I created Above and Abroad to manage those, manage the guest experience, automate lots of processes. And it's really fun. It was a really fun ride. Learned a lot. I even managed a couple for you.
You did, yes. Yeah. And you created some really amazing marketing. And a lot of people think that doing short-term or mid-term rentals is easy, but it actually there's so many little details. You see the people that try to get into the game, and they go into their extra bedroom in their house and they snap a few cell phone pictures, and then they put a picture of the microwave on there for whatever reason, and like they go, we're gonna rent this room out and we're gonna charge $60 to try to make a little extra money. And it does work, but there's so many details when it comes to doing it the right way and maximizing. Now, this is actually something that is really interesting in a market like San Diego, where the price of real estate is so expensive. It's hard to make, or I should say, justify acquisition prices based off of what something rents for and what it's for sale for, right? You look at something like, somebody sent me today a 4-unit for $1,400,000. So that breaks down to about $380,000 per unit.
Yep.
So when I look at that, I go, well, if they're 1-bedrooms, there's 4 1-bedrooms. How much does a 1-bedroom in Normal Heights rent for? And then I go, okay, well, as a standard rental, that place is going to rent for, let's just say it was super nice, maybe $2,500, right?
Yeah.
So that's $10,000 a month for a place that's going to cost you $15,000 a month in your monthly payment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't pencil as a regular rental. But that being said, there are always other ways to generate revenue, which what you do is you do midterm rentals or you do short-term rentals, and that breaks down more of a nightly price and or a monthly price that there's a premium because it's furnished.
Yeah.
If you don't know what midterm rentals are, midterms are fully furnished. You rent them to traveling nurses and people who are displaced by insurance. They had a fire in their house and they have to, rebuild it or whatever it might be.
Yeah, or like digital nomads, people that travel for work, DOD, DOJ, that kind of thing. Anyone that doesn't need a traditional 12-month lease and they require furniture.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And so they're usually going to be staying for 90 days, 6 months. You might get lucky. And sometimes it doesn't mean that they're not going to stay for 12 months. So we've had plenty of times where people will actually rent from us for 12 months on a furnished rental. They're paying a premium. But on average, the vast majority of people will need it just for like 90 days, 60 days, 30 days. That kind of thing.
And the numbers for the acquisitions actually end up more closer to what you would need to cash flow on them using those options. Is that right?
Yeah. It's interesting how when you look at a marketplace, so first to kind of break that down, everything boils down in, I think, real estate to supply and demand. Rentals, flips, ADUs, whatever it is, builds. You got to look at the supply side and the demand side, and then you're going to find that where you're going to hit a sweet spot for pricing, right? And so because of the low interest rate marketplace that we were in, more people could buy more home, which essentially raised home prices.
Yeah.
So that eliminated lots of opportunity for cash flow because the value shot up faster than the rental prices did. Even though the rental prices were going astronomically high as well, it still was outpaced by home price. And then when interest rates increased and you had to buy something, cash flow was eliminated.
Right.
So people turn to strategies like midterm rentals, short-term rentals in order to cash flow properties.
Yeah.
In order to keep
it had to make sense as a real estate investor, or even somebody who's not a real estate investor who wanted to invest in property, like real property, a rental property. This is the only way that you can have it to make sense.
Yeah.
So, are all the properties that you currently own through you or a company, are all of those short-term or midterm rental, or do you have any long-term rentals?
Yeah, I have long-term for sure. It doesn't, contrary to popular belief, midterm rental or short-term rental is not always superior to traditional rental.
Okay, that's interesting. Tell me why.
Yeah, because, if you go out to the marketplace, you go buy a house and you say, all right, I'm going to just buy this house and I'm going to put a renter in there. You're going to be responsible for a couple things, right? One of them is if you hire a property manager, they're going to be between 8 and 10% on average, right? That's what you can expect in a traditional 12-month rental. And when the tenant comes in there, they're usually paying all the utilities. They're paying for trash, water, their own cable, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And they bring their own furniture.
Right.
Well, when you do a midterm or short-term rental, furnished rental, you first have to buy the furniture and have the place looking spectacular because it's so competitive. You go out there and you try to just throw something up on Airbnb today, good luck. All right. Like, your competitors are going to eat you alive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And number two, you're going to have property managers that are 100% capable of creating a guest experience that is going to make people rate it a 5-star stay.
Right. And you need ratings for a successful midterm or short-term rental, right?
Oh, yeah. You need not only ratings, you need great ratings. You need to have people really enjoy your space. And in order to do that, it's going to take someone that knows what the heck they're doing.
Yeah.
Whether it's communicating with the guest in a timely manner with the right message, or if something always is going to happen. This is business, right? Like, it's people, you're managing people, what I call on vacation mode.
Yes.
When you just go somewhere, you don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a hotel, right?
Yeah.
You got to make somebody feel like something is our podcasting studio, my office that we're in right now. When I first purchased this house, me and Ashley, her plan was that she was going to go back to work at Nordstrom.
Sure.
And we had just had the twins.
Yeah.
And we bought this house with the thought that she was going to go back to work and contribute to the mortgage payment on this house, which was, at the time was a lot of money for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we, of course, had twins, and we went through a lot of, family. Ashley's mom passed away and stuff. And so she decided to stay home with the boys.
Yeah.
And in order for us to help support the mortgage that we just got on this house without her job. We did short-term rental on this, and we had absolutely amazing reviews. We called it the Tiny Tudor House.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was great.
And House Hacking 101, we were making about $3,800 a month doing short-term rental on this.
Yeah.
And our mortgage payment was $3,200.
Yeah.
So we were living in this brand new, beautiful house, and we were living for free.
Yeah, it was awesome. Awesome. Because one of the things I want to point out, that you know design, you know how to make stuff look great, you know how to take care of people. You've been doing that a long time, managing people's expectations and different sorts of businesses, keeping people happy.
Yes.
And so it was like a natural progression for you to have a space here where people were going to be coming. It was, every review talked about how great it was designed and how nice and clean it was all the time. So you made my job exceptionally easier than some experiences that I've had. So yeah, like you're going to make a premium. You're going to cover, more bases than the average person.
Yeah.
But,
So going back into your management business where you manage other people's property for them.
Yeah.
Do you do that on your own, or do you have a team of people that does that for you?
Yeah, so I'm involved in the leadership of that. Obviously, like especially for the first, I think 4 or 5 years, I was actively involved every single day. But I have a team to answer the questions particularly, and less involved nowadays because I've built the team, built the systems, built the processes, but still, call all the shots to make sure people are happy. When something goes awry, I'm the one that takes care of it most of the time. Like I got to show up, and make sure it's fixed.
Yeah. You're the fixer.
Yeah, the fixer.
Yeah.
Leon, the professional.
Yes, got it. Yeah. so you basically built up this team that it was able to do the day-to-day tasks like scheduling and guest check-in and cleaning and all the stuff involved in management. But if somebody goes, the toilet leaked and I hate you and I'm going to give you a 1-star review, you would step in and solve that problem.
Yeah, as best we could. Wasn't perfect. That's why Airbnb gives you a little leeway on what an exceptional place would be. And I think right now, to be a super host, so the exceptional hosts are called super hosts. They have great reviews.
This is on Airbnb.
This is on Airbnb. And
okay.
There's Airbnb is the 800-pound gorilla. Like, Vrbo is maybe 10 or 20% of the marketplace.
Okay.
And so yeah, on Airbnb, you can have a 4.8 star review and still be a super host on average.
Okay.
And to put that in context, right? Like, it's not the same as a letter grade where it's like a B is 4, a A is 5 kind of scenario.
Yeah.
A 4 is failing. In fact, if you have an average 4-star, they kick you off the platform.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So you can't have a dirty house, because if you get bad reviews, you're going to get kicked off.
Yeah. And so they start warning you at like 4.
So this is interesting. So this is a great topic, and here's the reason why.
Yeah.
If going back to our acquisition question, which is people invest in real estate, in order for the numbers to make sense, they have to do out of the box rentals like short-term rental or mid-term rental.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the mix there that if somebody doesn't do it right and they get bad reviews and they just don't know how to properly manage that, then they've acquired this property, they've spent all the money on the furniture, they've done all of this work to make that place into a rental that makes sense for the acquisition price.
Yeah.
And then you've completely wasted that opportunity. Is that right?
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point. Whenever someone would contact me about, hey, because I get a lot of calls pre-acquisition. They're like, hey, I want to know what this is going to rent for as an Airbnb.
Yeah.
The first thing I analyze is, what would it rent for as a traditional rental.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So
again, going back to that, like mitigating the downside, because the last thing you want to do is be in a position where you have limited exit strategies, where you bought a place, you maybe even paid top dollar or market at that time, and you can't go resell it without losing money, right? Because you, for whatever reason, you just weren't the best Airbnb host or the market shifter or whatever number of reasons things could happen. So you want to make sure that, like, the worst case scenario, can you rent this place and still afford it as a regular rental?
Sure. Yeah. Because if it doesn't work out and you have to sell it, you have to pay your commissions, you have to pay closing costs. You've already spent the money on the furniture, so you're already pretty deep in the hole.
Yeah.
So unless you just see this, if you've already paid market, and especially right now, if somebody's paid market, they're not getting their money back out of that house, right?
Yeah, not for some time, like not in a predictable future, at least,
yeah.
So
do you suggest that somebody who is going that direction, whether it's you or somebody like you, go with professional management?
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. Absolutely. One of the reasons people like to invest in real estate is this. I'm going to call it, it's a kind of a myth, right? After being in the game for so long, it's passive income.
Yeah.
Right. They want to buy a passive investment. They're trying to just mailbox money, right? Yeah. And to a degree, that is true. But if you decide to buy an Airbnb and you don't get a professional manager, you can guarantee it's not passive.
Yes.
You're going to have a full-time job.
Oh, I know. I manage this place, and that's the reason why we don't manage it anymore. It's because Ashley was like, "I'm not scrubbing toilets on a Sunday," so she got out of it.
Yeah.
She got sick of people walking through her backyard.
Yeah.
And the work involved in it. And that's why it's so nice to have somebody like you that can fulfill that role. And even with the management fees involved, it does become very hands off.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the best things, even if it's, going to cost you. I guess it's a variable what you would charge, but on average, what do you think the cost would be to manage?
Yeah, 20 to 25% of the nightly rate. So, you look at, it's a completely hands-off white glove experience where they're handling guest communications, cleaning, check-in, check-out, any of the damage that happens to the property.
Okay, well that's amazing.
So it's from my perspective, it's worth the peace of mind. Like,
because you pay what, 10% on regular management, somewhere right around there.
Yeah. So for someone who does traditional management, you can expect them to market your property, lease it, and if something comes up during that lease, where it's like a repair or changing locks or whatever it is, they're going to charge you between 8 and 10%.
Yeah, and now something. So I own a lot of rental properties now, and I actually own and operate a property management company. And I did not start that company for the revenue from other people.
Yeah.
The reason I started the property management business was because of my own properties.
Yeah, likewise.
So I looked at the top-down view of all the properties that I owned and managed. And when I calculated out all the costs from a property management cost perspective and thought, well, I could hire somebody to run a property management company for me. Mm-hmm. I could train them. I could make sure that they were really well equipped to run it like a real property management company, get the proper type of software and all that stuff. And then they manage all my stuff. And then I'm basically, instead of writing a check to a property management company, I'm writing a check to myself, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And come with that came other clients as well. So it just didn't end up being all my properties. I actually had other property management clients that came on board too. So it more than covered the cost of managing my stuff.
Yeah.
And added to my bottom line.
Yeah.
So it was a good option. And I think that's, unless you have a one-off rental property or two, maybe even three, I don't know if it makes sense to start a property management company. But if you buy several apartment complexes, 2, 3, 4 apartment complexes, just for example, and you have all of these doors, it makes a lot more sense to own and operate a management company and hire somebody, because it's the same thing. You're paying the money to somebody who works for you or somebody who is looking out, maybe for their company versus this is your company, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings or quotes, I'm not sure who said it first, but necessity is the mother of all innovation. Right. And so
I love that.
Yeah. And so the same way that you got into the property management was the same way that I started the short-term rental company, because it started on a trip. I went to Zurich and I was staying in Zurich for an extended period of time. And I had a condo in Golden Hill. I'm like, I might as well rent this thing out. This is like 2016.
Yep.
And so I did it. It was a headache. So I had to come back and put some systems in place to make sure that I can, like, the time difference was so crazy. So I'm answering messages in the middle of the day. It is nighttime here, or vice versa. So I'm like, I got to go about this completely different. So I set up a system, some processes, got some cleaners, got a team, and it worked out so well that I did my other property. Now I have, 2 properties, and did a third one and a fourth one. I'm like, I got so good at it that naturally taking on other clients, other people's property, it was just a natural process.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you basically, instead of going the direction of hiring somebody, you did exactly what I did, which was you created the systems and you hired the people to run all of that. And with that came other clients as well.
Yeah. Because people were like, hey, how do you do this? What do you do? And I tell them exactly. And lots of times, they would go try it on their own. This is early times, and,
sure.
And I don't blame them at all, because I'm still putting things together, but they would come back and be like, how the heck do you do this? Like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I just started helping them to do what was necessary to get the income that they were looking for, and take, at the same time, they had less work to do. So,
well, I will tell you this. It's a lot of work, so I applaud your team.
Let's go.
I mean, they have a absolutely, you got to be on top of your game to run that type of business.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is, and again, we've gone kind of the progression through all these different things that you've done.
Sure.
The one thing that you still do now is flipping properties, buying, renovating, and selling.
Love it.
Okay. So that part of the business, are you passionate about that? Do you love doing it? And why do you love doing it?
Yeah, I'm genuinely passionate about a few things, but for sure these 2 things is real estate, leadership, and business. And they all kind of like play in the same pool, right? Like, so with real estate investing, flipping houses, you are doing a lot of things, I think, that are creative. There's some risk taking there. There is relationship building. There is leadership that goes on in that. There is, I like finance. You got to watch the news. You got to know politics. You got to know, so many different things. It sounds, as I'm saying it, I'm like, this is crazy, but it serves a purpose that I think fuels a lot of things that just like fulfill me. And so, flipping houses is one of my greatest passions, because it's like we become artists. at the end of the day. Like I think it's like my artful side of like being able to create a space that you can drive by and for generations know that like, oh man, that family that's living there,
You did that.
I did that, you know,
Yeah.
and they appreciate that. And so it's one of my favorite things to do for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting you say that because what we always like to do, and I kind of have a two-part response to that, because one of them being, you're right, we want to do something really creative and amazing. You know, we're taking what a lot of times is just a, you know, hot mess of a property, right?
Certainly.
And we have to make it into something that is amazing that somebody wants to buy, right?
Yeah.
But creativity also only goes so far, because you don't want to make it so individualized that only you like the property, right?
Yeah. If you're the only one that likes a property, that can be problematic
Right.
when you're trying to sell it.
Yeah, because and what I mean by that is, and here's the reason I bring this up. I partner with a lot of investors, right?
Yeah.
And as part of my agreement is I have full creative control.
Yeah.
And I do that for a reason, is because sometimes investors, they want to, you know, put their own stamp on it. And, you know, Miss Wilson, who has $20 million, who wants to give me $1 million to do this house, she wants to paint the outside purple.
Yeah.
And I know that
because like it's her, you know,
that's her favorite
color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or,
sure.
You know, she just is really, really passionate about, you know, having black tile or whatever it might be. And so going back to your conversation about making a, you know, having this blank canvas and making it amazing.
Yeah.
We also have to toe the line with making something that is somewhat available, or I shouldn't, that's not the word I'm thinking of. A broad enough spectrum that everybody's going to love it, right?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So earlier you talked about my nicknames coming from hip hop. And there's this age-old debate that exists in hip hop. And I'm going to draw these parallels pretty quickly here. So the underground rapper who doesn't sell any shows, like his close friends and family really appreciate his music, and it's like super unique to this guy. Like gets a lot of street cred for, you know, being underground, versus like, I don't know, Drake. Right?
Sure. Yep.
Who knows what works, like can make a hit record, has dozens of hits, and, you know, just people love it around the world. Like it does.
Yeah.
This guy's considered more of an artist, right?
Right.
And he is it's the business of music, right? And so we got to remember that it's a short and a long game, right? We're in the business of real estate. We're here to make a profit, right? We're not a not-profit organization.
Yep.
And so identifying market trends, identifying things that people appreciate in properties goes a long way. But I do think there is a space and a time where creativity outpaces the uniqueness of your own spirit, mind, collaborative, viewpoint is the thing. It's just, when can you do that? How do you go about doing that? And you know, are you able to sustain that in the marketplace?
Yeah,
is an important thing.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So we've done projects, right?
Sure.
And in the beginning, when we first started doing projects, and these are mutual projects that we've done together.
Yeah.
We used to put in cherry wood cabinets. You remember those?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
those are
travertine tile.
Yeah.
Or porcelain travertine tile.
Yeah.
The glass band that went around the shower as an accent.
Yeah.
And no matter what house we did, it had that exact same look.
Yeah.
Every single one of them was exact same. and that was just something at the time, getting outside the box or getting creative just really wasn't an option. We were just trying to keep our costs low and try to have it, appeal to the most amount of buyers possible, right?
Yeah. And at the time that's what was available. Like if you would look out at a lot of properties, a lot of investors were using the same materials. They're all coming on the same, cargo ships and the same, tankers, and the materials looked the same, felt the same. We got the same cabinets as everyone else. And that's one of the things that seeing the industry expand and grow to allow more creativity has been great. But yeah, that's exactly our stamp was. It looked like it all came from Home Depot.
So do you, I know we have a mutual project that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
The project, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, let's go for it.
We are currently doing a 7,000 square foot house in Point Loma.
Yeah.
Built in 1907
Monstrosity.
It was built by commissioned to be built by the president of the San Diego Brewing Company in 1907. This is pre-prohibition, which is just hard to even think about that this house that we're doing right now is that old, right?
Yeah.
And we brought in a designer on this house, Paige, and she has been, quintessential for being able to get period things for the house. And I mean colors and tile and things that I just don't think I would have been able to come up with.
Yeah, Nora, I think it's very important if I'm talking to investors out there or would-be home flippers, is one of the big things that you need to know is when you don't know. When you need to go hire someone to do something that's going to get you across the finish line or even just make it feasible to sell. In this case, we have no business thinking about what kind of design to put in a 1907 house. And one of the things that I'll point out is because Paige has been absolutely phenomenal. Love her design choices. Everything is you see it oh yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes a little out of budget, but
and that comes with the territory.
Yes,
right? Right.
A designer is amazing at providing the best guidance on what you should do, and sometimes you have to negotiate with your designer on the materials that you're going to put in. In fact, on this house, I chose some plumbing fixtures for this house, and Paige would not let me put those in.
Yeah, she vetoed you. I was proud of Paige for that.
She put her foot in the sand and said, absolutely not.
She definitely had my vote on that too. I saw those. I'm yeah, those are kind of modern. Yeah. In retrospect.
Yeah. She got me there. But yeah.
And another thing that we should point out too is even prior to Paige, joining the team, getting an historical report to make sure the things that we would do were historically accurate as well.
Yes.
So having a foundation to know this is what's acceptable for a qualified historical review. This is the scrutiny that we went through to make sure we're doing it right.
That's absolutely right. And you made a good point too. During these years, it's been 20 years since we started flipping properties.
So wild.
We've learned to make the connections that we have with contractors and subcontractors and agents and brokers and all these lenders. All these different things have kind of led up to this point. I actually have a really funny story.
Okay.
The first project that we ever did together, we decided that we were going to do a little demo ourselves. Do you remember this?
Oh my goodness. That was actually the second project.
No, that was the second project.
That was the second one.
Yeah, you're right.
In Canto.
Yes.
I remember that. I'll never forget that. Wow.
And there was a soffit above the kitchen cabinets.
We were hammering that thing for 3 days.
we thought we were just going to come in and knock this thing down. Oh. That soffit would be around during a nuclear war.
Oh yeah, it was impressively built.
It was insane.
over-engineered, impressive. Like,
I came home so sore. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
never doing demo again.
yeah. That was a good lesson to learn. Like, that's when we started making. It's something we knew already, and I think a lot of people do this, but there's this like give and take between I can do it on my own and save some money as I'm good at it and I can do it, or I could get someone. It's going to cost a little bit more money, but it's going to free me up to do the things I'm absolutely good at.
Yes.
So that was a good learning lesson for us.
Yes.
Pivotal moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with the people that know what they're doing, that can do it right, never putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
We have learned from other investors' mistakes on what mistakes not to make ourselves.
Yeah.
Like trying to cover up stuff that you can't see. I think that, throughout the years, a lot of people have, just come, it may be inexperienced investors. I use the term investor lightly, but they come in, they don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to make a quick buck. And at the end of the day, that is something that I just would never do.
Yeah. And on the other side of that too is people that like buy it's overkill, right? They go into a project like they're going to live in it. Like it's going to be their final, boss home, where that's, it's a like forever home.
Yeah.
And that's a big mistake I see a lot of people make too.
Yeah. And the segue would be, if you had any advice for somebody who wanted to get into investing, what piece of advice do you think would be the most valuable?
Partner.
Yeah. Yes.
Get with someone who's doing it every single day, who's, fought the battles. It's like, they'll tell you what roads, the shortcuts, not to take. It looks like a fast-paced road. It looks like a shortcut, but really is a dead end. So partnering with someone, they're going to be like, I've been down that road. That's not a road you want to go down. This is the way you want to go about it.
Yeah.
That you're going to learn that. So it's going to cut your learning curve, your pain and suffering down. Sometimes eliminate it. Maybe not eliminate it. Let me take that back. But they're going to cut it down for sure.
Yeah. And also just on that same subject too, is as an experienced investor, you can tell people, yes, you should do this deal, or no, don't go anywhere near that. That's not going to be a property that you want to do, right? Like you can help if somebody, because where we're at right now in the game, and this happens to you, I know it happens to me, and where people will bring deals to us and they'll say, hey, I want to invest in this property. Do you want to partner with me? And I can look at that deal, I can analyze it and go, heck yeah, I'll come in with you on that deal. Or, oh, no way, you do not want to do that deal. And it happens pretty frequently where somebody thinks that this is going to be a great deal, but they've been sold, an oceanfront property in Arizona, right?
Sure. Yeah, being an underwriter to a deal is your number one job as a investor. And, I think that at the end of the day, like our goal is to stay curious, right? Like I think the number one skill set that we have is to always not like get in our own way and like, drink our own Kool-Aid, is to just always be curious about the marketplace, always be looking at the data, like never go into a deal like, oh, I know this market. It's every deal stands on its own.
Yes.
It's individual deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, natural progression for the next phase of your real estate journey.
Yeah.
What's that going to be? What's it going to look like for you?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Because I think we're kind of similar in the sense that we are not like a one lane, stay in your lane and just do this one thing. Now, I don't suppose you're going to stop flipping properties. I think that's going to be a long-term thing for you. Even, down the line where you're older and you just don't need to work anymore, I think it's something that you probably would still want to do because you love doing it, right?
Yeah. I find So two-part question. What am I going to do next? That is a great question. I feel like we are in a transitional phase economically, in not only in our country but in the world. The way that monetary policies are being created, the season that we're in with AI. We invest in property to create wealth and income, profit. And so we always got to make sure that where we're headed is also where the money is going to be.
Sure.
And so I'm analyzing that right now. I know that there's always space and opportunity in real estate. Where that space exists, I think that we're going to see population growth. The demand will need a supply. So whether it's like infill projects, like adding on units, which is very, very popular already, like things like ADU, and we've seen some legislation come down the pipeline.
Yeah,
that is going to make that a bit easier.
Just to let you know, an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, is like a detached granny flat on a parcel. So you have a single family house and you build a separate unit or units on the property. ADUs are really popular in San Diego right now. I think you're going to see the growth of ADUs in other parts of the country as well, especially with, home prices being where they're at. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to add a separate unit that either your extended family can live in, your mom or your, mom and dad or your kids or whatever else it might be, or you can always rent that property and have the extra money help support your mortgage on the property. So that's a pretty common theme. And as investors, we can underwrite deals with the ability to add those units to the property as well, correct?
Yeah. And it's nothing new, right? Like it's just a new jargon. ADU, granny flat, casita, like lots of terms have defined that like separate unit. But I think what's happening now is the affordability of a property is making them almost mandatory, right? So it's like when you can't afford the single family house, the next thing is, it's been termed house hacking, is to get a house with a unit that can help support that mortgage.
Yes.
And so where we're having challenges with getting people into houses because they're less affordable, we're going to create, like I say, necessity is the mother of all innovation. ADUs, granny flats, those accessory dwelling units are now what's being innovated so that people can afford houses and we can live. And so where there's like really dense populations, those are more popular. Coastal cities, big cities, that kind of thing.
So as an investor, you can swoop into a property and analyze it and say, well, I can buy this property for X amount of dollars. I can add this other unit, and then I can have 2 rental properties on one. Is that right?
Yeah, or more in some cases, right? I've seen as many, speaking of that, like over in Golden Hill off of 25th, there was like a house in the front, right? Single family residence, 2 or 3 bedrooms, just a traditional house with like 12 units, single, 1 bedrooms in the back.
Yeah. Amazing.
We got away from that. I mean, that we were exuberant as investors. I should say, I say we loosely, but, investors were really taking advantage of those programs and maximizing the amount of units. We've pulled back on that now. I think it's gonna be more reasonable where it may be like 4 units, 3 units on a lot. But those are always going to be better for cash flow, as long as you can get it financed well, than just buying a single family house.
Yeah. Can you do short-term or mid-term rentals on the ADU programs?
Ooh, that is a great question. And the answer as it stands right now is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a city regulation. They do not allow it. Is that correct?
Yeah, because the thought process of allowing ADUs, this is at least my understanding of it, is to make rentals more affordable, increase the supply of rentals. And if you have a short-term rental, you are taking that rental unit out of the inventory for people to rent, right? So it makes sense from a policy standpoint.
Okay.
There's other arguments against that clearly, but from that standpoint, it kind of makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So potentially some infill projects, some building of new things, multifamily. Is that something you are interested?
Yeah. So you made, as like, when I think about how I come up with these, like, what am I going to do next? One is like, is it fulfilling? Do I think there's an opportunity there to make some money? And then two, I look at people that I like to emulate. Like I know lots of folks who are retired, and one of the things they do is they just don't stop being creative. They don't stop working. I feel like that leads to longevity. You have a purpose, and so so although they might have multifamily, lots of units, they're still doing flips. They're still doing like a single family house when a deal comes across their desk. Sure. They like enjoy it. So I see myself doing.
They're not doing crossword puzzles.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't stop them from doing crossword puzzles, but for sure, but for sure, they're occupying their time with, I think, something a little bit more challenging. Okay. Not to say crossword puzzles aren't challenging, because they definitely can be, but just whatever fulfills you. And some of these guys are fulfilled by like creating value through real estate. Yep. Yeah. So bigger deals, like more doors, I see myself doing. And I also, we explored this a little bit, and I know there's some people here in town who really got after this, was boutique hotels. It's a natural progression. When you have short-term rentals, you're essentially operating a hotel. Yes. Yeah, it's like a multi-family hotel.
It's kind of the same thing on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. Because I like the idea of travel. I like the idea of hospitality. We do that very well. Design. And you can get really creative with some spaces when you do boutique hotels. So that's a natural progression. We came across a solid deal. This is a thing, like, for every investor out there, there is a one or two deals that got away. You're like, oh.
Yep, they passed on them, and then...
Yeah, you look back and you're like, that was the one.
No.
Yeah. I have a lot of those, honestly. Like, I've seen a lot of deals.
Me too. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. I have too many to count, but you know what? Yeah. I do pride myself on not losing money. And that's a very important aspect of investing. Is being conservative is not necessarily always a bad thing, because there's going to be deals that you pass on that you should have done. And there's going to be deals that you passed on that ended up being loser deals. Yeah. And some people, it's a numbers game. They try to acquire as much stuff as they possibly can, with a thought process that even if there's a few losers in there, they're going to come out on top at the end. Yeah. But why do that if you can cherry pick and get the really good deals and never lose money? Yeah. Yes, you're not going to have as many deals, but you're also putting yourself in a position where at the end of the day, you're maximizing the return on your money, opportunity cost.
Yeah. Like that's Warren Buffett's style of investing, right? Like, although he doesn't invest in real estate in the way that we do, the philosophy is the same, right? Like, I think one of his most quoted or misquoted, just depending on how you look at it, is like, don't lose money. Yes. Right? Like, don't lose money.
Don't do bad deals.
And then know thyself. Like, what is your buy box? Mm-hmm. What are you exceptionally proficient at that you have a competitive advantage, and do that over and over and over and over again. In fact, like, wealth, in my opinion, is generated from doing boring things consistently. In fact, much more than the next person would do, just over and over. You're doing that boring thing that makes,
repetition
over time, right? Yeah. Like, you're doing it at more volume, more consistency than the next guy.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Do you have a thought on OPM?
Yeah, so OPM, other people's money. I think that is how the world goes round. If you live in a capitalistic society, it's almost undeniable that you get to borrow other people's money in order to create wealth, right? Just if you just look at like our biggest, and because the reason I say that and I frame it in that way is like lots of people preach like debt is bad, And there's a lot of really popular individuals that will die on that hill. But I think even more now than, because a lot of those folks are from a different time period. I think even more now, you have to strategically use debt to acquire assets. And then one of the best ways to utilize debt in a way is other people's money, not just banks, right? So banks is probably our first go-to because they're, they are
more structured,
usually lower rates and fees sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But other people's monies, collaboration is how the world turns around. So, yeah.
So if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Leon, I have, $1 million.
Okay.
Can I partner with you on a deal?" Like, is that something that you're open to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So
obviously the right situation, but yeah, that's something that we do, I think, on a regular basis.
So what amount of money does somebody have to have in order to invest with you? Like if somebody came to you and says, "Hey, Leon, I got $3,000 in the bank."
Yeah, I would probably respectfully, kindly decline, simply because, my interest is not in using their money. My interest is in being able to collaborate with someone that can not risk their entire amount of money. In fact, accredited investors, that term is something you might have heard of. If you haven't, it's basically someone who has the financial capacity to take a loss, because investing is inherently risky and you will lose money. So when I look at...
We try not to, but you can. Yeah.
And I say that as a disclaimer of sorts, because our goal is never, ever, ever, ever to lose any money ever. But is it possible when you're taking on the type of risk that we do? Yeah, because we just can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, anything, right? So
the number would probably be somewhere around $100,000 to get in the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, do you foresee any real estate opportunities coming up that somebody can potentially invest in, that whether it's a boutique hotel like you mentioned, or a flip, or a multifamily, or whatever it might be? Do you ever actively go out and do capital raises for those projects?
Yes, great question. That's something that I am more intentional and focused on now. I haven't been in the past. It's all been hard money, which is more expensive loans because they qualify less, is the best way to put that. So they're like not looking at your credit. They're not going and doing a deep dive on your financials. They're not...
they just want to see you're a good investor.
They want to know that you have experience, and that the number one thing they're looking at is the property, right? If they have to take this thing back because you don't pay, are they in a good position to reposition that, to sell, to dispose of that property?
Right.
And so hard money, although it's easier, it sometimes comes with a higher cost. So we take down deals with hard money, our own money, and then the partnerships. And so now it's coming where it makes sense through our experience, through the deal flow that we have, to start raising capital, because we're a steward of the money. We want to make sure that we can return it, and the best way to do that is have the track record. So more intentional about raising money now than I have in the past. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
I think that I think real estate gives so many different opportunities to be involved in something that is going to provide above your just normal returns that you're going to see. I think it's comparable to like the stock market, right? Where you can see in certain cases really great returns, sometimes average returns. There's always that risk, but it's like really similar to investing in the stock market. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there are different philosophies, different camps. I think the number one differentiator in any of those, first of all, I like to say, there's so many ways to create wealth and make money, right? Real estate just happens to be one of them. One that I truly appreciate, and it's different from most others because there's like a real tangible asset that's attached to it. Um, and pros and cons to that as well. But I love real estate. And yet, when you're a practitioner, so if you go look at like an average real estate return over the last 2 decades and you research it, you ask Chat GPT, it's going to be like, oh yeah, 8 to 10%. You know, and I think that's favorable when you're passive. When you buy something and you sit. What we do is we force return, force appreciation. We go buy something that is unique, that could be repositioned, that could be renovated, and we force a return. So those returns can go much higher than average returns. So from that standpoint, yeah, real estate is far superior.
And I think also the advantage of that model, with the exception of some projects that do take longer, as we call them JV partners, joint venture partners. In certain cases, you'll be able to invest on a project, and let's just say it takes you a couple months to buy, renovate, and then a couple months to sell, whatever it might be, 4 months. We can provide a return on that investment within 4 months, but then you can reinvest that on the next project, which then you get the return on that, and then you've reinvested the money again. So in a 12 calendar months, you've invested the money 3 different times. So say you got a 10% return on your money.
Yeah.
But you got that 3 times.
Sure.
So you've now made 30% on your money.
Sure.
And I'm just throwing out these numbers, like it's not always going to be 10%, but if you do get this blended return, you could see a lot higher return, and you can also take into account potential losses, right? Because if you've invested 4 times and you made 20% on one and you made 10% on another one, and then you lost 5%, well, your blended return obviously was a lot higher. Again, not that you're ever trying to actively lose money, but it's just a diversification of the ability to make money and also risk money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that speaks to a larger, goal, is like being diversified. So if you are a believer in equities and stocks and stuff like that, you don't want to put all of your money in that basket. You want to have some real estate. And same thing with the crypto markets, which have become increasingly popular over the last decade. You maybe don't want to have all your money in there. You want to be able to play the markets against themselves. I think real estate is one of those tried and true methods of owning property, cash flowing property, building equity, appreciation. That's just been there for so long that it's a good have a good chunk of your resources there.
Yeah, I love that. And something we're not going to discuss today, but that in the future I do want to discuss this with you because I know you're really familiar.
Sure.
Is going to be crypto, because that's something that I'm currently not invested in. I know a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I do not know what blockchain is.
Sure.
Sounds like a bunch of Legos attached together to make a chain.
I don't think you're alone there. I think even some people that say they know what blockchain is
have no idea
know what blockchain is.
Yeah. So we're gonna save that for the next episode. But I think it's interesting to know what type of investment vehicles are out there right now.
Yeah.
One of them being real estate, obviously crypto. There is opportunity in there.
Sure.
And then there are other things as well that I want to give ourselves at least 10 different ways that you could make money right now passively. And I think that if we sat down and started this really honest conversation, we could come up with at least 10 different ways that you could do it outside of real estate. That real estate maybe being one of those.
Yeah.
But I think we could give ourselves a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah.
And we're going to save that for the next episode, because I think this is going to be something that everybody's going to want to hear.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't want to make passive income?
Yeah. It's one of those things where part of the work I do as a human every day is to try not to go in those other directions, right? Like I love the idea of like, oh, something new and creative. And, you know, so some of the work, and I think we spoke about this in the past, it was like, we got to stay focused on this thing, because there's just so many opportunities to do other things that are equally as profitable, at least from the outside looking in. So yeah, I think that would be a great episode, because I do have a lot of...
Me and Leon almost bought a laundromat.
A laundromat, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually not a bad deal.
It wasn't a bad deal. But I think at the end of the day, we decided like we just don't want to own another job for the time period.
Yes.
But it was a good deal. Because there's a lot of that when you asked that question, what came up for me was like, oh, one of the things you could do is buy businesses.
Yes. And these are the things I want to discuss, because I think there's I have this feeling this could be a 6-hour podcast today. If we start getting into that stuff. So I do want to talk about that. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is have you give your contact information so people know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. Hit me up, leoncook.com, Leon Cook on all the social media handles. So Instagram, X, whatever, Twitter. Yeah. Find me. I'm online. I'm out in the streets doing deals. Yep. Yeah. And so I'm not a hard guy to get a hold of.
Yep. Yeah. He's very easy. If you look on any bus bench. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, right? At some point.
Yeah.
My shout out to Eric Elgato, my real estate coach. He used to be on every single bus bench, like shopping cart. Yeah. Like, yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
I was I actually, when I was in the mortgage business, I was in his office.
E-loans over there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes. So don't put it past me. Like you might see me on a bus bench. I'd have to take all the King Omnipore's spots though.
Yeah. I think he has a big budget.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe I can borrow some money from you, Brad.
He's like his phone number is 619-000-0000 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I think it's 44444.
I don't know. One of those. Both. Yeah, he has both. Yeah.
Shout out to him too, man.
Yeah. You know, so thank you all for listening. Yeah. You can find me, Brad Damm, on all those social medias. And Leon, thanks for coming over.
Yeah,
we're gonna be doing this again very soon. We have several great projects in the works right now. We want to talk about those things, and very soon we're gonna have that other discussion about 10 different ways to make passive income beyond real estate. So tune in for that the next time.
The Damm Podcast. That's a good name. Oh, and by the way, there is going to be look out for. So we talked about this project that we're working on right now. Point Loma. There's going to be a cool event. So it's this you're hearing it here first. We're going to put together a kind of like roaring 20s, like Great Gatsby flapper party.
Yes.
To showcase and invite people to come see that house. So there are going to be some links and things that are going to be provided to sign up. It'll be invite only RSVP style. We want to have a good time. So look out for that when the project is coming closer to.
It's going to be phenomenal. This house is one of the most amazing historic homes in all of San Diego.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this house. If you've been to Point Loma, you know this house. You've driven by it before. It's right on Rosecrans. It's an absolute monstrous craftsman house. In fact, we have what's the website for that?
That is pointlomahistoricalcraftsman.com.
Yeah, is that right? Is that up yet?
Or that is up. You can go there right now and check out lots of details. Stuff is getting added every day as we complete construction, so you get a behind the scenes view. When the house is complete, there'll be a full walkthrough, so you can walk through the house. Get all the historical information about the home, see our historical reports.
Yes.
And then also you'll be able to sign up to get updates about the event that we're going to be having. So,
yes.
So that's pointlomahistoricalcraftsman.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. You guys have a good day.
Let's go.
Bye-bye.
Bye.